Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you very much for inviting me here today to speak to you on this topic. I suppose there is a working assumption inherent, given the title of our afternoon session today, that banking has in fact broken away from the real economy. But I believe that what has happened in Ireland in recent years is in fact more that their very interconnectedness with each other has created a negative feedback loop of ever-decreasing circles, as it were. I further believe that re-establishing a positive feedback loop is difficult but possible and will be brought about through good governance of our banks, intervention where necessary, and effective regulation. Changing this feedback loop or re-establishing a virtuous circle will in turn fund the growth and stability of the critical SME sector and other aspects of the so-called real economy in Ireland.
There's a lot of what in the US we call temporizing going on. That is basically, let's wait till tomorrow and then see what happens and maybe things will work out nicely. Maybe they won't, but they might. Ed Kane has a phrase for banks. See, this happened in the US in the 1980s. It's not like I'm coming in from some foreign planet and saying, oh, you're doing it all wrong. Oh no, to some degree, you're doing the things we did. Don't do that. It's not good. It has bad outcomes. That is, part of what's happening with the banks is the following. They're insolvent, all right? But they're allowed to continue to operate. So what are they going to do? They're going to try to get well, of course. That's very sensible. And if they have to push their customers up against the wall, it's okay, because it's better than going out of business. And then you can live to fight another day. And that's basically the idea of zombie banks. If you look up the definition of zombie, well, there are people who aren't alive anymore, but they're moving around because of some mystical or magical process. And that's one way of thinking about what banks are doing right now. So the question that comes to mind, see, from the US perspective, the question that comes up, and I've talked to people in the US about this who've never been to Ireland. They're just economists. For better or for worse. But, you know, I talk to them about it and say, well, the banks are all insolvent. And they say, well, we should just let in foreign banks. That's the obvious solution. Why not? Yeah, in fact, the question is, why aren't foreign banks here? The trouble with letting in foreign banks is, well, Citibank? Come on. They've been bankrupt 3 times. They're a zombie bank, too. You ask the question, seriously, what banks are in a financial position to expand into Ireland from the Eurozone or the US? The answer is it's not at all obvious.
First and foremost, I do think that the biggest issue that we have in Ireland today is the mortgage arrears crisis. And I'm not going to blind you with science or with numbers. But what I am going to just point out is the direction of the line on that graph, which has been upwards and looks like if we had put a ruler against it, it will continue to move in the same direction if we don't do something about it. And obviously there are a number of moves being made in terms of bankruptcy as well as personal insolvency, etc. But the view I'd like to put forward is that this absolutely can be tackled, really and truly can be tackled. And I did actually have the numbers, Anton, of the number of mortgages in arrears in the PDH, or the principal dwelling housing sector. And that is that at the moment we have 143,851 mortgages in arrears in the PDH sector. Now, we have 1.7 million households, and I know that by all the controversy that went on about the property tax, and I'm sure we all know the number of households in the country. But that means that 8.46% of households are in arrears. 8.46%. Not 20%, not 30%, but 8%. This can be dealt with. It really and truly can be dealt with. And what's more is the banks have the capacity to deal with it, because the total amount of all arrears in value is 2.9 billion. So 2.9 billion is what the banks have in arrears, and yet in 2011 the stress tests said that the banks have 5.8 billion as a base case in which to deal with this issue alone. Now, at a stress case, they would have 9.49 billion, which is 3 times the amount of arrears that's actually there. So the banks actually can deal with this. They really can deal with this, but the thing is they can only deal with this at the moment. If this gets any worse, then we're moving into a whole other area.